little bit sick and twisted, but so what kinds of things hit your expectations of a musical? What does this do that is very musical-y? We got the music, right? That music is definitely, it's very pop, it's very produced. It's definitely, it's really good, well done music. I got to tell you, though, like I said, prettydeadgirl.com, you can download all the MP3s, okay? And there is nothing like, especially if you have to go shopping at like the big Walmart, having your headphones on and listening to music and shopping and having You Have to Love Your Woman When She's Alive, come on. Really. That and Play That Funky Music, White Boy, those two are the best things to shop to. But that aside, it does a lot of things. It's got that musicality. It's got the production value. It is bright and shiny in a lot of ways, isn't it? It's definitely got that. It's very romantic. This, here they are, star-crossed lovers. This is just another version of Romeo and Juliet in a lot of ways, in so many ways. Now, did you notice any references to other movies or things? Anybody catch any of those? Clockwork Orange, the eyes. Clockwork Orange is brilliant. Very disturbing also, like more disturbing, okay? I've heard that like reading it isn't crazy because you have to like read with your finger in the glossary the whole time because they definitely use that speak. But so we've got Clockwork Orange from the very first. There are a whole lot of references to things. So this is definitely using subtext. Anytime we have a reference to another text, wait, let me go back even further, because one of the first ones is to Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, which is another musical. It's actually wonderful. Okay, so we get that. This right here. The guy or girl, and this has got to be a reference to something. So this is definitely a reference to Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. We get some things to like the Partridge Family. I think there's a little bit of allusion to High School Musical there. I've only seen it one time. My friend, her daughter loved it, so so I'm not quite sure there. I'd have to go watch me some High School Musical. But then all of a sudden, well, first of all, the guy smothering the patient at the first, and then, him adjusting his crutch, we're like, wait, because the other thing, musicals are generally family friendly, aren't they? So all of a sudden from the start of this, the patient getting smothered, him adjusting his crotch that way, I think that's definitely got to have some High School Musical reference in there. There's reference to the musical Hair, which was a 1960s anti-Vietnam War musical. It's really great. It's amazing. Going on in here, a number of just kind of real clear references, if you know this stuff, that are there. So it's pulling in those, and those are very well-known musicals and very critically acclaimed musicals. So he's definitely making reference to that in terms of doing this. And of course, this, when she adjusts her boobs, just like him adjusting his crotch and everything, same kind of thing, right? We don't expect that, one, on TV much at all, maybe in like music videos, stuff like that, but definitely not in something we see as a family-friendly genre. And there's some zombies in there too, right? Looking? Okay. Oh, that right there was definitely Hair. So it's got all over it, it's got these kind of references to other things in the genre that are very critically acclaimed. And so what it's doing in that way is, one, is it's saying, look, we're the same here. We're just the same. But we notice all these things that are not the same, that are slightly disturbing. Besides Sweeney Todd, which, like I said, is based on an opera, and operas are always gruesome. Usually it's very family-friendly, very open in that way. And then, of course, we have this moment where we make this realization. Look at this framing. Whose framing throughout this is just amazing, where we got her and him walking away. And even this just kind of pan back, and the grays and the squares and these kinds of things create this idea of this very sterile thing. And then, of course, we find Morty here has a problem, doesn't he? He doesn't quite love his women when they're alive. Now, this just plays into, from the words and the lyrics, just all through it. What is it? She doesn't say much. Oh, wait, no, I meant play, volume, not... Okay, so we figure out, and quite disturbing. Now, do we generally make movies about necrophilia? It's rather a taboo subject, right? I mean, even talking about it is just like, dude, like that's way creepy, okay? So he takes this, and this whole scene, at first it's disturbing, but then in this framing too of her, right? She's behind the lines, the bars, this kind of sense of who's a jealous. My baby, he's crazy. Once she says that, we have this permission to laugh. And this song, is just kind of smooth and rhythmic. And he says things like, you don't tell me I'm wrong, right? When I argue, we won't argue, we'll get along. Now, in Greek symbolism, so you've seen the, you just stay, I'll take care of you, right? And especially when it gets into this next part where we kind of goes upbeat a little bit. I'll get back to the Greeks in a minute. Down, down. And I mean, so it's got this real kind of happy, upbeat pace, which is, of course, exactly the opposite of what we're watching. What we're watching is horrific, but it's got this. It's almost given us permission to have this happy feeling about this. And that's one of the things that's very powerful, because when we get through this song, right, and we get to the end here, okay, did you notice he didn't have his pants on? And the parents rush in, right? That all of a sudden we're like, oh shit, this isn't just make believe. This is somebody's baby, right? And so it creates this whole kind of thing where for a moment we're almost, as viewers, even though it's disgusting and we're like, this is horrible, we're lulled into it through the music, to this kind of playing around with it. Now to the Greeks. So you've seen Greek statuary, or even into the like Romantic age and everything, so even into the 1800s and everything, those statues where there's the woman with her hand across her head, her forehead, leaning back, paintings, that kind of thing. That is the symbol, that's death. The sash. So a lot of times they'll be wearing like a sash, like a, Miss America kind of thing, right? The sash is the symbol of perfection. Now, in terms of Greek, perfection, when we're talking about where words come from, it's this idea of something has to be done or dead. My life is not perfected until I die. Then I have finished. I have completed it, right? Something can't be incomplete and perfect, because what about the rest of it, right? Yeah, okay. So this idea of the dead woman as being the idealized woman is very prevalent throughout art and throughout sculpture and imagery and like everything like that. So when he talks about, that we're going to have this relationship and we'll never argue, she doesn't say much, we're never going to have any grief. Isn't that, we could turn that into, he never says much, we're not going to argue, he never gives me any, we could turn it either way. Isn't that the idea of a perfect relationship? But is a relationship like that alive? Right? A relationship that's just one-sided is not alive. Part of what makes relationships work is the fact that we are different people, keeps us engaged. Those of you who just finished, did we read The Perfect Match? Yeah, I know I did with you. There's a great story. It's on my 1301 website, Essay 2, The Perfect Match. One of the problems that goes wrong in there is this computer-generated setup date is they already know everything about each other, and so it doesn't work, right? Because they don't have conversation. They don't have moments to say, no, I think you're wrong. Yes, I see what you say. Any of that. And so whenever this song about, she doesn't say much, she's not, I can, what is it, he talks about he says there's that point where it says bend, like this bending to my will. This is definitely a commentary on relationships, on what we think is the ideal relationship, but on the other hand, what is actually a dead relationship. To have a relationship with nothing new. With just ourselves, well, you don't need somebody to do that, right? But if we want to have a relationship with somebody else, then there's going to have to be compromise. There's going to have to be. There's always going to, I didn't know. 2 failed marriages, some other relationships, man. I always thought it just all had to be hard. Like grit your teeth hard. That relationships were always, you got to work at it. Yeah, you got to work at it. But I didn't know, man. I'm 38, and when I was, that's 10 years ago, 38, and I found out it doesn't always have to be hard. Now, does that mean that Jack and I agree on everything and we're always happy with each other? I'm sure he's always happy with me. I'm sure he's always thinks I'm always happy with him, right? No, doesn't mean that, right? Relationships are about people being individuals and us accepting each other for that. And part of that is just the ups and downs of it. So, in terms of this moment, whenever it's this idea, what is that necrophilia? Even though it is such a taboo subject, if we get past that, what does this stand in for? This idea. And when we have this whole, in terms of the songs, in terms of even the choreography of that kind of bend, and that, she's limp and she just, goes to his will. Like I said, whether it's male or female, either way, that idealized relationship that isn't really a relationship. So all sorts of things are happening there in terms of what is it saying and how is it making a comment on things. And at this moment when we get this and we've been in this happy place, yeah, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, this is disgusting and disturbing, right? We are pulled back to it. We're reminded that this is not something we should be comfortable with. And then, of course, we get, this kind of good use of close-ups, and, of course, the color changes, but it's definitely, those different colors, things like that. And what's really nice is when we get these jump cuts back and forth between the psychiatrist's office and the, apothecary shop here. So we get this kind of back and forth so that we have that simultaneous action. And this is just, fabulous. This is the song to... alive? Okay, this is a good solution, right? And yeah, so this moment. There's also in here definitely allusions to Chicago, the musical Chicago. So definitely the women and the dancing and the dark colors and everything like that. And so here's where we get this allusion to the right here to Clockwork Orange, which Clockwork Orange, the basic idea in Clockwork Orange is you've got these, bad youth, the Utes, okay? It's the Utes of Britain, I guess, instead of the Utes of America, right? So these bad young men, gangs of them, and their theory is, they take them, these scientists, their theory is if you show them enough violence and horrible things, they'll just, it'll repulse them and they won't do it anymore. That can backfire, right, with somebody who's in the, that's kind of part of the thing. I'm not ruining it for you. If you watch that, you're watching it for other reasons. But it is disturbing. So anyway, and what we get to, again, is our expectation of musical. So this is definitely, this is one of the most choreographed numbers. People singing, the dancing, all of that kind of thing. That's where it's definitely an allusion to Chicago, the Lipschitz song they do in there. So we've definitely got that coming in. And of course, in Chicago, basic storyline is, women killing men. And really, it's set in the, Chicago Prohibition era. And this is about not just killing men for killing men. Totally. Starts off with defending themselves and that kind of thing. So we get all of this. And again, happy, though he's there because he needs to learn to love his woman when she's alive, an important part of it. And so again, this is kind of goes back to that Clockwork Orange in that way. And then, let's see, the whole plan. Isn't there a woman out there kicking, screaming, active? You mean a woman breathing that I find attractive? Yeah, okay. So then that realization of love, and that's very, very typical. Now, one of the things that's really kind of amazing that I love about this is this shows a lot of those things we've been reading about in terms of those transitions that we don't see a whole lot. So, she's walking along, and then watch this. This is that moment where we get this dissolve. So we see this, but, not often as much. We get this dissolve, and so it moves into her, and so we can see how those work to give us this. Here they are, different places, going through this at the same time. And then when he reaches her hands, that kind of parallel editing in a way. But this moment, I love this. So this is one of the key things of, the lovers, the star-crossed lovers getting together, or at least, planning to. Now, usually, again, we have beautiful, clean, pristine things in musicals and family films. But this one is going to play with it again. For one, that him cleaning his ears out with a Q-tip, well, you don't get that stuff, right? Like, who goes to the bathroom in movies? Like, I don't know. They must hold it forever because nobody, literature too, very rarely do you get, and then she stopped and peed. Okay, right? We just scoot over these things in so many ways. But this is, again, bringing that stuff back. And maybe in a way, if we're saying, look, if we don't want these kind of dead, stilted characters for relationships, we want real people, we have to accept all of that. This is just disturbingly hilarious. That smile. So right here, I wanted to go back to this moment where they're dancing. Come on. Let's see if I can find it without. Okay, here we go. Okay, now they're going to take off and dance. Come on, you're going to dance. Go dancing. Okay, look at this. Check this out. Usually, almost. Usually in family movies and musicals and all that kind of stuff, do we see litter? Do we see trash? Do we see, deformities of any kind in the set? But what have we got? We've got water spots. We got some trash. This is, even though it's giving us those happy, bright colors, it's giving us this happy language, we've still got this world that is not pristine. And in all those family movies, whether they're musical or not, we get this very unrealistic, pristine world, right? So Ku here is playing with us again because he's saying, look, the world isn't like that. So on another level, and this is that level of me sensing there, of saying, wait, that world is not the real world. Okay, so here we go. And then, of course, we get to this moment. It's going to happen. He's got the flowers. Oh, but what does she have to do for it to work? Every last drop, right? Every last drop. So, but this is a great moment, too, because notice, this is our first big moment of silence. And so because we've had that sound all along, that silence becomes much more powerful. And then when we get these other sounds that are actually more diegetic than any of that kind of non-diegetic, even though they're singing, but it's not that soundtrack. And again, look at that framing, the sides. And then here's where we get all of this. And so all of this so far has been happy, happy, happy. We expect them to get together in the end. It's going to be wonderful. Whatever, even if she's dead, he's going to love her because he's going to decide he has to love his woman when she's dead. No, wait. Right? And so, of course, we've got to have this moment of tragedy because otherwise we'd just be reading stories about some elf having a happy picnic. And those are boring. Okay? They're happy, but they're boring. And so, we get also the reprise of, he's trying to, and she keeps to herself. So again, the reprise, and there's always this reprise of some song from earlier in the show in a musical. So again, he's following just even the structure of how we pace and everything, these songs. Now here, one of the things that really is amazing is, I'm not free, man, pretty dead girl. Okay, notice, she's not all in the light. And light plays a huge, huge thing here because it really works for that metaphor of understanding and just actually being enlightened. And so notice she scoots back a little bit here and she's like, oh yeah, I'm not dead. We get a little light kind of in her, on her heart and things like that. But throughout this, here, notice she's in the dark. I mean, she's constantly in the dark. And of course, Morty, and so there's a very obvious use of lighting to underscore the message, not just the only way to make the message, but when Morty comes over there and he's going to be braver and true. I love that song. I would play that song at my wedding, okay? Maybe the first line, there's something about, dead or something. Maybe I'd take that out. But notice right here, look, when the camera moves around and all of a sudden we get both of them in light, right? And watch how bright the spotlight is as it pulls up and how it matches up when that music hits that high note. Notice. Watch, and it will get even brighter right there. See that? Subtle. Ooh, I got a chill. Okay. I mean, it's very subtle, but it is this moment, right? And so what helps us feel that moment is both that sound and that use of lighting, this moment of discovery that, yay, Morty's going to love his women when they're alive. Aren't you happy for him? So anyway, that is Pretty Dead Girl. And you can...